Absolutely. Just in terms of more analysis, we're joined now by Solly Moeng. He's the CEO of the Donvalley Reputation Managers. Mr. Moeng, thank you so much for making the time. Are you with us?
Hello, Desiree. Yes, I am here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Before we get into the conversation, I want to say to you that what's been called the Phala Phala farm gate has really garnered a lot of worldwide attention, and we're talking to you from Switzerland. What sort of conversations are being held or in that part of the world, just in terms of how is that part of the world opining about the story?
Well, there was a bit of coverage, at least, about the imminent departure of the president of South Africa last week, and obviously we know what has happened. His buddies decided that they were not ready to stop eating; he must stay on. so I think the world is waiting to see which way things are going. But on the whole, it's been a build-up to a negative reputation for South Africa globally, and it's very sad that things are not getting better.
But just in terms of his legal prospects, as we speak, President Ramaphosa has filed papers to the Crown Court to review and set aside the Section 89 panel report. What does this mean, and what conversations are being held about the credibility of this report?
Look, we know that the report can be seen from two perspectives. There's a legal perspective, there's a political perspective. It looks like the political perspective is gaining ground. People are aware of that. And Ramaphosa has decided to go the Stalingrad route. He's learned a lot from Jacob Zuma, his predecessor, and, former boss. So which means that it's going to go on for a long, long time. There's going to be, but this also gives them time to stay in power for as long as they can. And the ANC, of course, the Ramaphosa is not a separate person from the African National Congress. And his parties, those who are coalesced around, will stay with him. And South Africa gets caught in between. So it will be between the abuser who claps you once and the abuser who claps you 4 times. But the fact is, Ramaphosa is not a man on his own. He's a man who represents all those people whose names we've seen in the proposed list of the next NEC, people like Malusi Kigaba. So it's not any better for South Africa. That's a sad thing. I think that South Africa needs to find a way to shackle itself. But the ANC is going to continue what it does best to abuse South Africa.
Well, just take us deeper into what do you mean by it's not any better for South Africa if people like Malusi Kigaba are coming into the new NEC?
Well, we know that over the years, levels of arrogance and impunity in the ranks of the African National Congress, people who've done so much wrong, people who should be, at least we should have had their names cleared in the courts, some of whom should be in jail, many of whom were enablers of state capture with the Guptas. We've seen all the evidence that's come out implicating them. Obviously, the fact that the NPA is not acting against those people, it doesn't mean they have no answers to give to South Africa. So it's these people who should be prisoners are being brought in as lawmakers. How do prisoners become lawmakers? Only in South Africa. So South Africa is going to be more and more of the same. The ANC is going to stay in power, hold on to Ramaphosa because it needs him. Even after the last elections, the former premier of Gauteng did say, look, there's no way that we could have won this election without this man. South Africans have fallen in love. Maybe not anymore. Ramaphosa is gone, but he's still the best of the worst, as it were. If you're looking for a shirt to go to an interview and all of your shirts are dead in a bucket, Ramaphosa is the slightly cleaner one that you could take to that interview. But he still remains the same ANC, represent the same ANC. I think the mistake we make in South Africa is that we tend to speak of South Africa from the perspective of the ANC, and that's the kind of unshackling I'm talking about. We need to say, this is what the ANC is doing. The ANC has chosen to stay. They will support Ramaphosa. Nobody should be surprised, just like they supported Zuma. But is it good for South Africa, or is it not bad for? Is it not good for South Africa? We know that what's good for South Africa is no longer good for the ANC. What's good for the ANC is no longer good for South Africa. So South Africans need to say, what kind of country do you want? What kind of leaders do you want? What kind of qualities do you want in those leaders? Do we have them in the ANC? My answer is no, we don't. South Africa needs to start having all these difficult conversations. We have to swallow the bitter pill of Ramaphosa going and then start rising again. It has to get worse before it gets better. But we can't keep holding on to Ramaphosa because he's a nice guy. He's not the good leader that he was supposed to be, especially given the devastating effects on South African institutions over the past few years.
I want to take you back to the legal perspective and just in terms of the questions that keep being raised about the impartiality of the judicial system. Is this the right way to go to try and take it on review? Just that legal principle that innocent until proven guilty, how far can we stretch this?
Yeah, Zuma is also innocent until proven guilty. Malusi Gigaba is innocent. Tom Moyane, all of these people are innocent until proven guilty. Unfortunately, that's the state of law that we have in South Africa. But the thing is that people then don't have to appeal to their own conscience. They know that they did things that are wrong for South Africa, but because legally, on a technicality, they're innocent until proven guilty. I would say to then stand aside, go through all the processes to get your name cleared, and then when you are cleared, we can give a responsibility of public or in a public position in South Africa. But that's not what happens in the ANC. So you have all the National Assembly filled with crooks, the Lutula House filled with crooks, even in the South African High Commissioners around the world, High Commissions and embassies, we've got crooks who've been sent to these places because they're innocent until proven guilty. They did something wrong in South Africa. So then you normalize criminality at political level. You don't be surprised when criminality becomes normalized throughout the society, because there's no star to look up to. There's no leader to look up to. Even Ramaphosa has lost the moral high ground within his own political party. His ministers insult him. They tell him to leave while he's still in office. So he has no respect in the party. How does he expect to get respect in the country? So we need to separate what's good for South Africa, as I said, from what's good for the ANC. And it is a time when the ANC, South Africa must accept that it cannot go ahead with the ANC. Of course, the ANC holds an electoral mandate until the next elections. We accept that. If Ramaphosa goes away tomorrow, they're going to choose Mabuza, as current protocols require that the deputy president takes over until a new president is deployed, not elected by the people of South Africa, deployed by the same ANC, and they're not going to deploy another Nelson Mandela. We know they're going to deploy somebody else who has all sorts of charges and accusations over them they have, because they're not able to look beyond the ANC into the broader South Africa, where they can find amazingly good men and women to lead this country. They're not going to do that. They keep circulating this dish amongst themselves.
How should an ordinary South African be digesting all of this at this time?
Well, we are, until the next election, South Africans, especially people in the political opposition in South Africa, need to also start thinking about things differently. We have too many egos. People who want to go in there, they think they're going to be the next big thing for South Africa. Everybody's starting a political party. They're going to end up with small little bits of the pie and looking around to say, okay, how much did you get? How much did you get? What position do you give me? What position do you get? It's all about them. It's all about us. They need to organize themselves before the election. South Africans need to come together. Religious movements, civil society movements, political movements, and say, and ask themselves, what kind of country do we need to build? South Africa needs to start preparing a post-ANC South Africa. Otherwise, if we go the same route, trying the same things over and over again, we're going to end up with the same messy South Africa. So something has to give. South Africans must change. South Africans must, in the head, accept that there's going to come a time soon when the ANC is no longer the makulubas of the way of foreign policy making, economy policy making, education, health, everything. Because the things, look, whatever comes out of the next NEC, as I said earlier, we've seen the names that are already in there, many dodgy names. The NEC is going to remain divided between the RAT, at least, and those people who are coalesced around Ramaphosa. They're not going to come up with a 100% Ramaphosa NEC. It's not. It's going to be, again, a struggle to agree on foreign policy, on economic policy, on other policies, because there's going to be a big thing about why did you not nationalize the Reserve Bank, for instance, which is something that is not needed. I mean, you nationalize anything under the ANC, you know which way it's going to go. You start with a so-called state bank under the ANC, you know where it's going to go. They are not able to manage the institutions that they inherited from apartheid, some of which were started or strengthened in the aftermath of apartheid. They've destroyed all of them. They want to start new institutions for what? But to be managed by whom? By the comrades who still need a chance to eat. Mm-hmm. At the expense of whom? South Africa and the South Africans. So there's going to have to come a point where South Africa saves itself from the ANC. Let the ANC fight, make their own decisions, but maybe they need to go out there in the wilderness and hurt themselves, but not South Africa.
Clearly a lot to say, but time against us. But thanks for your time. Solly Moeng is the CEO of Donvalley Reputation Managers in this conversation about Phala Phala. And of course, as we continue to have these conversations, we'll bring in the African National Congress just to respond to some of those assertions by Mr. Moeng there. Naledi?